Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about health of the mental kind. So let's get into it. So the question in question was a bit of a story. Basically, a subscriber reached out and asked, Fredrik, I'm feeling like absolute shit at work. I feel like I can't connect to any of my coworkers. I feel like I'm in the way and I feel like nothing I do matters. Can you talk a little bit about how to deal with this sort of thing? And that is a good question. The short answer is that it is very likely that you are correct, that nothing you do actually matters, and you find yourself in an environment where most people are really not there to connect with anybody or in any way really contribute to society or technology or anything like that. They're just there to do a job. So what you are describing is what happens quite often when a company gets to that magical point, which I've spoken about a few times in a few other videos, and that is the apathetic level, where people have been crushed, like the spirit, the ownership, the desire to do bigger and better things has been crushed to the point where nobody cares anymore. And the thing that kind of gets underestimated is how that impacts not just the work that you do, but any chance you have of changing that. You see, if you take an individual such as this subscriber here who has the desire and the passion and really wants to get to know people at the personal level and collaborate and push things and so forth, that spirit, that is something that you need to nurture. But you can't nurture that if you put them in an environment of people who are bitter, tired, they don't care, and they're not really interested in accommodating that sort of youthful spirit. Now, one thing we should be honest about here is also that if you put it may not just be that they are negative towards this subscriber, but rather it can also be the case that the subscriber is feeling as if this is the case rather than it actually being the case. Because one thing that you should know is that when you have been working for a few years as a senior and you see people come and go and so forth, you always see this, or rather you will often see this reoccurring trend where your company hires some new upstart junior type of person and they are full of energy, usually they're a little bit afraid in the beginning, but usually they are the sort of people who come in and suggest that, oh, this is absolutely horrible, we need to rewrite the whole system from scratch. And that is a very different thing from what the subscriber is suggesting is happening, but it is something worth thinking about. Because we have to be honest, is the issue that people don't care, or is the issue that you have unreasonable expectations on the work environment? Because quite a lot of juniors do actually have this, and I see this pattern over and over and over again, where they come in with all these big ideas and then they realize that they have deadlines, they have prioritizations, and they have stakeholders that they need to get into buying into whatever suggestions that they have, and then they have migration strategies because not all the coworkers have the desire to change their workflow, etc., etc., etc. All of these things of reality hits them and it crushes them that way. But if we assume that this person is absolutely true, absolutely correct, because it's not just the possibility that the thing I was saying is going on. It is absolutely feasible that this is as horrible as he or she describes, and it does happen. Then what you are describing is I would say one of at least the main reasons as to why senior developers would start working at a startup. Well, it doesn't just have to be seniors really, any developer really, but it becomes even more of a thing for a senior to do this because they have actually spent enough time in the industry. Usually a junior they will take any job they can get for the most part. So a junior starting at the startup is not really weird, but a senior who is willing to usually go down quite a lot in salary to start working at a smaller company and work even harder than most likely than they did at their big corporate enterprise job is going to stand out more to people. But this is the reason for quite a lot of them. They want to feel empowered to do things. They want to feel like they are involved. They want to feel as if they control their own workflow. They want to feel some meaningful connection to the work that is being done. And in order to achieve this, it's much easier to switch jobs to a firm that is smaller, with a smaller group of people, if you will, than it is to try to change a really large organization, because odds are that you will never be able to do that. That process of change, even if you were to start doing it, you need to have the influence and the patience to get it to happen. It is a very, very long and hard process to do that for a big company. So by going to a startup, you pretty much are guaranteed to at least have some of these aspects. I mean, not every startup is perfect, but since a startup basically lives and dies with the people that is part of that startup, because it usually isn't all that, it's not that many people usually, and they don't really have the money to pay people outrageous salaries usually, then all that is left is the office culture, the team spirit, and the sense of commitment and ownership and influence over your own workflow. All of these things that the subscriber is describing are the cornerstones for quite a lot of startups to even be able to survive. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you are feeling like this subscriber, like nothing you do matters at your job, you don't really make any friends with your coworkers, and they feel like they're kind of just doing their job. They don't really care so much. They're apathetic, if you will. I mean, your coworkers usually you create people like this in two ways. The first way is that you crush them. Like they start out as the subscriber and they are youthful and like hungry and they want to do things and so forth, but because you have in mountains and mountains of process and other restrictions, finally you crush them because they don't feel like they can influence anything. And the other way is that they simply are there to do a job, like they don't really care. And you can't change that by yourself. That is, it's an infection that needs to be uprooted or cut out at a company level, basically. So it's highly likely that the solution to your problem here or the easy solution is to change your scenery, because there are companies where you have all of these things in place. It's just that it's not a given that you're always going to work in that context. And in order to find these sorts of jobs, you have to be very upfront about how much you value personal connections to people and engagement in the workplace when you're in the interviewing stage. A tip I can give you is to always make sure that you get to talk to all your coworkers before you sign a contract of any kind. That will give you an indicator of the sort of people that you are going to deal with. Have a great day.